Hey everyone, so today on the channel we are going to be breaking one of the core kind of rules of Tiki, and that is that most Tiki cocktails need to be shaken. Plus, this allows me to give you guys one of the most requested things I get on this channel, and that is more stirred Tiki cocktails. So, let's do this. Hey everyone, I'm Andy and this is Mixing Up Tiki. And today on the channel, as I mentioned, we're gonna be going over a stirred Tiki cocktail, specifically a cocktail that you guys have asked for a lot, and that is a Mai Tai Old Fashioned. Now, this brings up the question, why do we not see more stirred Tiki cocktails? And honestly, I think that has to do with the traditional build of a Tiki cocktail. In a traditional build of a Tiki cocktail, we have citrus, syrup, liqueur, and spirit. And it's this addition of the citrus that makes stirred Tiki cocktails rather challenging. You see, when you add citrus to a cocktail, it contains pulp. And that pulp needs to be shaken in order to properly integrate into a cocktail. Not only that, but it adds aeration. And this creates a lighter feeling to a cocktail that contains a lot of sugar and a lot of juices. Now, this is a topic for a whole nother video as to, can we get rid of so much sweetness and juice in Tiki cocktails? We can, but we'll talk about that in a future video. So if we can't include citrus into a cocktail, how do we get that signature acidic bite, or how do we balance the sweetness that we typically get in a Tiki cocktail? Now, this is where a solution of acid phosphate actually comes in very, very handy. Now, for those of you guys that have no idea what acid phosphate is, well, don't worry, that's to be expected. It actually doesn't show up a lot in cocktails. However, it's actually a super old ingredient. Acid phosphate is actually something that comes to us from the soda fountain era. So we're talking the 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s. Now, back in the late 1800s, getting things like citric acid or tartaric acid, which are considered fruit acids, in a stable and fresh form were actually really challenging. You see, when you make a solution of fruit acids, it tends to, well, mold. It doesn't stay very good for very long. And it's because we didn't have good preservation mechanisms back then, and we just couldn't get these things fresh. We had no way of synthesizing them back then, and we couldn't pull them from fresh fruit because, well, especially up here in things like the Northeast, getting fresh limes and lemons was nearly impossible year round. Now, the first patent that we see of acid phosphate actually appears in 1867 by Eben Horsford of Cambridge, Massachusetts. And in this patent, he actually combines human bone with sulfuric acid to make acid phosphate. Now, acid phosphate solved a lot of the problems that soda fountains had. They needed something that was tart and dry to balance the sweetness of sodas, but they couldn't use fruit acids as they were organic and would mold. And Horsford's acid phosphate basically fit that bill. So throughout the late 1800s, we see Horsford's acid phosphate become synonymous with, well, acid phosphate in soda fountains. And basically, if you were going to use acid phosphate in any of your drinks, then this was the recipe that you were going to use. Now, the problem comes later on when the patent runs out, and all of a sudden competitors come into the field, much like Park Davis and Company out of Detroit, Michigan, who created their own acid phosphate. Now, with all these competitors in the field, Horsford does exactly what anybody would do, and that is file a lawsuit. So in 1888, the court case against Park Davis and Company is settled, and the courts deem that acid phosphate, the term, cannot be patented. Therefore, Horsford actually loses the case, and we see an explosion in acid phosphate recipes. Now, before you guys ask, where do you get acid phosphate? I'm gonna link in the description below a link to Darcy O'Neill's acid phosphate. You can buy it right off of his website. I do have a recipe. I made my own. I'm happy to share that if you guys want in another video. If that's something you guys are interested in, definitely comment below. Let me know that you guys want to see that recipe. Combining all those things creates a solution that's a pH of about 2, so about the same acidity as lime, with a nice dry and like tingly tart flavor that works super well without imparting really any fruit flavors. So now that we have the history of acid phosphate out of the way, let's build? Yeah, let's build. All right, so grab a mixing glass, and in your mixing glass, we're gonna add 5 drops of salt solution, 1 dash of acid phosphate, 1 dash of almond bitters, 3 dashes of orange bitters, 1/4 ounce of Orgeat, 1 ounce of Denizen Merchant Reserve 8 Year, 1 ounce of Smith & Cross. Now grab a lime and drop a peel in. Load it up with plenty of ice, and give it a good rock stir for 20 to 30 seconds. Grab a chilled double old fashioned glass, drop in a large cube, and then strain the contents of the mixing glass over the large cube. And we're gonna garnish with a couple sprays of orange aroma. And then you have it, my Mai Tai Old Fashioned. Let's give it a try. Okay, so it gives you all the essence of a Mai Tai, but it's in the form of an old fashioned. So we have a stirred cocktail. It's not aerated, it's not airy and light, it's dense and it's thick. But it has those flavors of the lime and the almond and the orange and the rum. And I chose this rum blend because it's the same rum blend that I use in my normal Mai Tai. I try to stick to something that's a little bit more higher proof, 50% ABV, as well as something that sticks a little bit more to the traditional kind of 17-year-old pot still Jamaican rums. I love the Denizen Merchant Reserve, but it doesn't bring enough funk for me, which is why I split it with a base of Smith & Cross. Now, the Acid Phosphate, even just one dash of it, is doing enough job of lifting up this cocktail and creating that kind of zest that we would get from lime juice. It's helping to balance out the sweetness from the Orgeat. A couple other decisions that I made specifically, the almond bitters that I use is 3-part Feast Brothers toasted almond bitters and 1 part Feast Brothers black walnut bitters. I actually find that this adds a wonderful bitterness, but also brings that almond and that kind of like almond extract flavor that we want and brings it up from the Orgeat. So it's just doing a little bit of lifting to really bring that almond flavor right to the forefront. The orange bitters are what are known as Fegans. Basically, it's a split 50-50 of Fee Brothers orange bitters and Regan's orange bitters. I actually picked this up, I think, from the Educated Barfly. I think that's the orange bitters that he used before he started creating his own. And so I find that this brings a wonderful orange flavor that we would typically get from the orange Curacao inside of a Mai Tai, inside of this cocktail, without adding any additional sweetness. Now the Orgeat that I picked today is actually a rich Orgeat, so it's 66 bricks, and it's a clear Orgeat, a technique that I picked up from Kevin Koss. If you guys want to see a recipe for that, absolutely let me know. But at a 1/4 ounce, this does a lot of the lifting that we want as far as the sweetness in this cocktail. It's not overly sweet, and the Acid Phosphate is doing a wonderful job of balancing that out. Now last but not least, traditionally when we would garnish a Mai Tai, we garnish it with a mint sprig. We don't typically see a ton of like fresh herbs used in old fashions. Instead, we usually see a twist. Now, I don't usually keep oranges on hand, so I can't zest an orange over this cocktail. Instead, I have an orange aroma, which is basically orange essential oils, a little bit of Everclear, and a little bit of propylene glycol. And this is actually a technique that I picked up from Truffles on the Rocks. It allows you to basically have an infinite amount of zest that you need for cocktails without having to keep fresh fruit around. It's a wonderful hack that I use all the time. I think I have orange, grapefruit, lime, lemon, any of your traditional zests that you would do over a cocktail, I have in aromas. All right, well, there it is, everyone. My Mai Tai Old Fashioned. I wanted to show this because I want you all to see that Tiki doesn't need to be shaken. It can be stirred. It can be elegant and on a large cube and stirred down to bring down the sweetness and bring up the booze and really highlight the kind of spirits that we use. There's a lot of rules in Tiki that we're gonna be breaking over the next couple weeks or months, whatever it may be. And I hope you guys stick around for it because I've had a lot of fun really pushing the boundaries of what is Tiki. You know, I think it was Beach Bum Barry or maybe Trader Vic, or even it might have been Don himself. Actually, I think it was Trader Vic who said, Tiki is whatever you want it to be. And for those of you purists and gatekeepers out there that are like, that's not a Mai Tai, well, you know what? Too bad, because it is a Mai Tai. Feel free to drop a comment. I'll reply to it because I reply to every single comment that everybody leaves. But, you know, once in a while we need to expand our horizons and say, how far can we push this thing and still keep its bones? This is the bones of a Mai Tai, just in a different format. And there's nothing wrong with that. It is still delicious, and sometimes you just don't want to go through the hassle of, you know, juicing limes and shaking and cleaning everything up. And sometimes you just want to stir down a simple cocktail. So there you guys have it, my Tai Old Fashioned, and just proof that not every Tiki cocktail needs to be shaken. Hope you guys really enjoyed this video, and if you did, definitely make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell, you know, all the deals. Until next time, guys, next video coming up, I have no idea what it is, because we'll find out. It's gonna be whatever I feel like. Anyway, until that time, take it easy.